Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallava Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. I don't need that. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Jaya Sri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So, reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Wonderful verse, actually, about Vrindavan. So, we don't have it here, so I'll go through the Bengali. Oh, it's just somewhere in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. No, Madhya Lila chapter 8, verse 254. So Lord Chaitanya asks, he says, Sarva Tyagi Jivera Kartavya Kahan Vasa. So he's saying, Sarva means everything, and Tyagi means giving up, right? And Jivera, we know what that means, a living entity. And Kartavya, to be done, and Kahan, like even in Hindi, it's like that, right? Where means where, and Vasa means residence. So Lord Chaitanya said, where should the living entity live? Tyagi abandoning all other places? And the answer is not Dallas. Believe it or not. Well, it is kind of. It's Kalachandji Mandir, not Dallas. Yeah, right. So he's saying we should give up Sarva Tyagi, give up everything else. And Kahan Vasa, where should he go? He or she, where should they go? And then Ramananda Roy replies, Brajabhumi, Vrindavana, Yahan Lila Ras. Right? So he says, he should live in the holy place known as Vrindavan or Brajabhumi, where the Lord performed his rasa dance. And if you're familiar with the verses surrounding this, it's all about Vrindavan and Krishna's relationship with the Brijbasis. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes the Srimad Bhagavatam, so 10th canto, 47th chapter. Does anyone know what that chapter is? Chapter 47? Let's see. The Song of the Bee. Okay, so he quotes that. And I'll probably mess up the Sanskrit, so I'll just read the translation. But it's Uddhava said, let me become one of Vrindavan's herbs and plants that are trampled by the gopis, who gave up all connections with family and friends and decided to worship the lotus feet of Mukunda. Those lotus feet are sought by all great saintly persons expert in the study of Vedic literature. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Okay. So how many of you are familiar with the Sound of Music? Okay, you're giving away your age if you are. So anyway, there's one song that begins. We'll start with the very beginning. It's a very good place to start. I won't sing the rest of the song. But let's rewind a little bit and get to Vrindavan. Okay, because Vrindavan is the place where God is actually God, fully independent, fully himself, and his devotees are totally selfless and in love. And all of the Bhagavatam is really leading up to this Ashraya Tattva, this Krishna. But there's two main verses in the Bhagavatam, well, 1.5 main verses in the Bhagavatam that lead us to this discussion with Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya. So the first one, and we'll talk a little bit about that, is anyone know? No, but good. That's a good verse. Yeah. Canto 1, chapter 2, verse 11. Anyone know that verse? Shall I give you a hint? It begins with Vadanti. It's the most important verse in the whole Bhagavatam. Vadanti tattva vidas, tattvam yajganam avyayam, brahmeti paramatmeti, bhagavan iti sabhyate. It's the paribas, it's the main verse that all the other 18,000 verses focus on, this one verse. It's compared to a lamp in a dark place. Although the lamp is in one place, it's large enough, it can illuminate the whole room. So similarly, this one verse in the first canto, chapter 2, illuminates the entire Bhagavatam. It's spoken by Suta Goswami. And the goal of life, it says, is to inquire about the absolute truth. And the absolute truth is called Advaya Gyan. So Advaya means, so I'll get a little philosophical before we get to Vrindavan, but stick with me. Advaya means non-dual. So when Mayavadis read this, they are in ecstasy. They love this verse, right? Because they think, yes, the absolute truth is non-dual. That's what we've been saying all along. I don't know if I can see this. I'll probably. It's either I see this or I see you, but I can see you. Just yeah. They say that so that the absolute truth, there is no object, right? There's just subject. It's not conscious of itself, the absolute truth. There's no notion of I, and there's no personality. There's no selfhood. There's no something else. So Mayavadis love that. They think that's great. But we have a very different, that's really, when you think about it, it's not a practical philosophy. It doesn't make even sense that much. We have a very different understanding of Advaya, of non-dual. That, and this is, presented especially by Srila Jiva Goswami, that the Advaya Gyan is personal. And there is someone who is not I, and it's Krishna, the source. So there's three reasons he gives to accept that the Advaya Gyan is a person. And he says one is and it's Krishna, because Krishna has no other cause. Anyone know a verse that says that Krishna has no other cause? Yes, sarva karana karanam. Right. Also, aham sarvasya prabhava in Bhagavad Gita, right? I am the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So Krishna is the source. He has no other cause. Prabhupada would say, everyone here has a father and mother, and that they had a father and mother, they had a father and mother. You go back, you go back, you go back, you go back, you go back. And ultimately, it's Krishna. And that all of his energies are his own. So, because we say parashya shaktir vividhaya suyate, there's God and there's God's energies, but all those energies are Krishna's energies. They're not independent, right? That's the third one, that the energies of Krishna are not independent. They all come from him. So there's nobody like Krishna, and that's Advaya Gyan, according to Jiva Goswami. So, and this verse is saying that this one truth, there's only one truth, Advaya Gyan, is manifest in three ways: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Okay? So, and it's spoken, it says, what is that? Vedanti tattva vidas tattva yadhyarma pramiti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabhyate. It is spoken of. It is that absolute truth is understood in three different ways, according to our conception or our doctrine, our philosophy, and our sadhana. Okay, so those things lead us to, depending on what those are, we'll get, if we're really focused, Brahman realization, Paramatma realization, or Bhagavan realization. So let's begin with Brahman. Brahman is real. It's a real thing. If you practice Gyan, eventually, really well, and it's really like almost impossible in this age, you'll see the light. Just like if you're in a totally dark room, right? And then you go outside and the sun is shining bright, midday sun in Dallas in July, right? And you've been in a dark room for days. You won't really see. You'll just be, as Bruce Springsteen said, you'll be blinded by the light. I won't sing that song either. Actually, it was Manfred Mann who sang it first. Anyway, all right. Yeah, my mind is like a 1960s and 70s jukebox. So, yeah, you'll only see the effulgence. So this is a preliminary understanding of God. It's an indistinct understanding. You don't make I was looking up this word indistinct to try to, and I saw in the folio there's so many mentions of indistinct. So how is that possible? It's such a unique word. But then I realized that when Prabhupada would say something and it wasn't clear, the BBT editors would put, the archives, it would put indistinct. They couldn't hear what Prabhupada was saying. But it does make sense in one sense, that the Brahman realization is indistinct. We see the power, but we don't see the person behind the power. That's Brahman realization. So then the next is yoga, right? Or understanding Ishvara. And this takes more surrender. This is Paramatma. And Paramatma is the God of this world. Not the spiritual world, but the God of this world, right? God and his material powers. That's the supersoul, the supreme controller. In the verse 61 of the 18th chapter, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Hridesher Arjuna Tishtiti, right? That Ishvara, Sarvabhutanam is in everyone's heart. And even in the translation, that's Supreme Personality of God. So Krishna's not saying me, he's saying that in referring to other, the Paramatma, right? Ishvara Sarvabhutanam. So yogis actually, if they get real realization, they can see that everything in this world is controlled by God. They can even become trikalagya. They can see past, present, and future because they get connected with the energies, the power of this world. Not the spiritual world, this world. So, and this is, in a lot of faiths, this is kind of, it's a kitchery, but this is kind of what people think of God. God in this world and judging people. Krishna has nothing to do with judging people. That's not his program. He's in his own world. He's God for himself instead of God for this world. Most people are egocentric, so they're concerned about God in this world, how God, is hanging, what he means to me here, right? And often, praying in ways, what's that song? Give me a house by the sea, Swami Jai Jagadisha Hari, right? Something like that, right? That we're very egocentric in that way. There's Jagat Dham and Param Dham. Jagat, the abode of this world, and where Radha Kalachandji is in the Param Dham. So Bhagavan. So we're getting to the verse. Okay, sorry. Bhagavan is the highest. That's God and his spiritual energy. And what is Krishna? What is God doing there? Well, there's two conceptions: the Aishwarya, the conception of God as being great, and we're very tiny, and therefore we should surrender to him. You need a little surrender to understand Brahman. It's mentioned that without even any bhakti, you can't understand Brahman realization, and for more surrender in Paramatma realization, but in Bhagavan realization, full surrender, no other interest, right? No other interest. So this is. And then there's the God of Vaikuntha, and we'll get into this in a minute, that he's as full of six opulences, and he's great, and we're very small. And then there's higher than that, which is God's sweetness, which is what Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya are talking about. But so in Brahman, there's one, right? It's really simple. It's one. And even in Paramatma realization, you could say there's one. You could say there's three. Karana Dakshaya Vishnu, Garbha Dakshaya Vishnu, Shiro Dakshaya Vishnu. But really, it's very simple. But then when you get to Bhagavan, well, there's Kurma avatar and Matsya avatar and Nrsimha avatar, and like what? Right? It can get kind of complicated. Like, well, who am I? Who am I supposed to? So then that brings us to the other half. A verse that is the most important verse in the Bhagavatam. Anyone know what I'm referring to? That refers specifically to Krishna. It's in the next chapter, verse 28. Ete Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. So it lists so many incarnations, I think 22 up to verse 28. And then there's so many, like the waves of an ocean. But of all of these, Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. And so these two verses are the two most important verses, and all the other verses of the Bhagavatam ultimately refer to these two verses. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. So this is so, Jiva Goswami goes on, he writes a whole book about these. Actually, the first one, Varanti Tattva Vidas, dedicates, is it 2 or 3? 2 whole books, huge books, to that verse. So, and the Krishna Sanda, of course, about Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. So, this realization of Krishna in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and specifically about his sweetness, this is what Ramananda Roy and Lord Chaitanya are talking about. Krishna appears, what time of day does Krishna appear? Midnight, right? So there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. Just like in does anyone know Bhagavad Gita? Is it chapter 2, verses 15, or is it 16? Nasato vidite bhavo, na bhavo vidite. Do you know that? Oh, you forgot it. Terrible. So much Maya. Let's get it right. Just so because it's very interesting that Krishna's appearance relates to this verse. Oh wait, no, that's not the one though. Anyway, we know the verse, right? That that for the self-realized soul and the conditioned soul, what is night for one is day for the other. What is day for one is night for the other. So Krishna appears at midnight. And the significance of this, one significance that we have to perform austerities and fast until midnight. Right? Why couldn't he be like Lord Ramachandra, appear at noon? And we have a feast at noon, right? No, but he appears at midnight because to understand ultimately Krishna, we have to completely give up. We have to completely divorce ourselves from material consciousness, right? Because what's night and what's day, like that, and completely reject everything else. Detach ourselves from this world, and Krishna is the shining moon that illuminates everything for the devotee. And in the pastimes of Lord Krishna, there in the sweetness, because everything ultimately is meant, as followers of Lord Chaitanya, as we're reading in this chapter, is ultimately directing towards Vrindavan and Krishna's love and the relationship of Krishna's relationship with the Brijbasis. And that's the goal of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. And the example is given, listen to this one, this is interesting. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives this example that it's really an interesting, if a mother gives birth to a really ugly child, okay, and so the child's kind of ugly, right? And then you tell the mother, well, you have a choice. Do you want this ugly child, or would you rather focus on the moon, this perfect moon shining and in the full moon, so beautiful, and the rays are cooling and which would you prefer? And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, well, naturally the mother's going to say the child, because there's love there. It doesn't ugly, not beautiful, doesn't matter. So he says, similarly, for devotees who actually love Krishna, would they prefer the baby Krishna, and all of his naughtiness and stealing yogurt and all that, or the perfect Narayan who is in Vaikuntha, right? Who doesn't do any mischievous activities like Krishna does. And Vishwanath Chakravarti, of course, will choose baby Krishna, right? So this is the difference between the Aishwarya and the Madhurya. And so we know that as we see pictures here, we see a picture right there of Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan, and these pictures, these are all Vrindavan, aren't they? Yep, all paintings by B.G. Sharma. I've been staying with Bhakta Henry for the last 5 months, and he was a very close friend of B.G. Sharma's, and he has B.G. Sharma's paintings, not this size, around his house. So Vrindavan and Vrindavan Krishna, and understanding Vrindavan Krishna, that is the goal of a Gaudiya Vaishnava. And then we might say, well, what am I supposed to do? Well, Srila Prabhupada, in his expertise, has woven what we could say the rag marg, or the path of pure spontaneous love for Krishna into our Vaidhi, right? Just like what song did we just sing before class? Jai Radha Madhava. Now, it's not like there's some rule that you have to chant Jai Radha Madhava before Prabhupada instituted it, right? No, but he chose a song that's all about Vrindavan, right? What's it? Jai Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Right? What does Kunjabi Hari mean? Yeah, one who wanders, or I joined in Detroit. Radha Kunjabi Hari is there. Yeah, yes. Uh, and then there's about lifting Govardhan Hill, Giri Vadadhari. It's all about Vrindavan, right? And then again, there was no rule about chanting Guru Vastak in Mangalarti. There was no rule, but two of those verses are specifically about Krishna and Vrindavan, the fifth and the sixth verse. And the sixth verse is very elevated. And there's so many songs to glorify Tulsi Devi, and Prabhupada picks the most rasika. Right? I mean, when you think about what we're chanting at Tulasi Puja, it's very advanced. It's very, very advanced. I always laughed when we would get like a new devotee in Detroit and didn't know anything about anything. He goes to Mangalarti for the first time, and there he is, first of all, singing to a plant, and if he knew the translation, that he was actually praying to be a woman in his next life. Right? You're like, whoa. It's very, very deep. So Prabhupada has woven very high stages of bhakti into our daily practices. And of course, even the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is very much like that. So this verse is talking about, that's something to keep in mind. And to, not that we, we have to practice Vaidhi Bhakti very strictly in order to be really come to those realizations. But that is what we're destined to. That's what Lord Chaitanya came to. The fourth chapter of the Adi Leela explains this very carefully. The reason that Lord Chaitanya came, and even the external and internal. External is to perform the Sankirtan movement. But what is Sankirtan? It's chanting of Hare Krishna. What is Hare Krishna? My dear Lord Krishna, my dear energy of the Lord Srimati Radharani, please engage me. It's very elevated again. It's about Radha and Krishna. Right? So practically speaking, what do we do with this? That we should all give up everything else and go to Vrindavan and live there. Well, let's talk about that on a practical level a bit. I had the great fortune to live in Vrindavan for 21 years. And, well, it's just mercy. It's nothing to do with me. It was actually Burijan Prabhu whose kindness upon my wife and I. And my son was born there. And even now, I get to spend almost 6 months a year there now that I retired. I was thinking for me, I think I was 30 years old when I first moved to Vrindavan. 1980. Yeah, it's about 30 years old. So yeah, so something like that. There's two really good ways to be in Vrindavan, practically speaking, for us as ISKCON devotees. One is to have a service there. So I didn't just go there to Radhe Radhe. I had service under the guidance of a senior devotee, helping to run the Vrindavan Institute for Higher Education and helping to publish books, different things. I had services to do there, and that's a really important thing. If you're going to live in Vrindavan full time and you're not on a very elevated level, it's really important to have some practical service to do. And the other option is when we go there on pilgrimage, is to plan the pilgrimage. About a year and a half ago, Burijan Prabhu and Satchinandan Swami inaugurated the Govardhan Retreat Center. So it's a retreat center for groups of devotees to come and hear and chant about Krishna in the association of Govardhan Hill, because it's just like a 2-minute walk to Govardhan Hill from the retreat center. And we even have, the Forest Service has given us an area there where we can have classes and things right in front of Giriraj. So to plan out the pilgrimage, not I'm going to go to Vrindavan, then I'll go to Puri, then I'll go to Mayapur. No, it's great to have some kind of reason to go, or some program with sadhu sangha and being taken around to the holy places with devotees like Dinabandhu Prabhu or Daivi Shakti Mataji or whoever. So many devotees know, but to have a plan to immerse ourselves. Otherwise, the problem is that you won't find Krishna loitering in Loy Bazaar. And you can't even get to Loy Bazaar anymore. Actually, if you've been to Vrindavan recently, it's you have to take like 2 or 3 rickshaw rides, but that's a whole other story. But to really have a plan to immerse ourselves in Krishna's pastimes and to prepare ourselves, because you see Vrindavan more with the ear than with the eye, right? Just like here it's saying, go to the place that Krishna performed his Rasa Leela. So I at least I'm aware of 2 places: Sevakunj, which is near Radha Damodar Temple, and it's it's hard to first of all, when you go into Sevakunj, you're really concerned if you're wearing chashma, if you're wearing glasses, because they're gone. Forget it; they won't last 5 minutes. There's so many monkeys. Oh yeah, in Sevakunj. But it's but it's where Krishna performed his Rasa Leela. So you have to go there, and there's a beautiful picture of Rasa Leela right behind us here, and hear from devotees about the pastime that took place there. And even Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote, this is 100 years ago, and he said that there's a slight material covering over the Dham. So that was before skyscrapers and all the traffic jams, etc., that you see in Vrindavan today. The other place is near the tail of Giriraj. If you're going Prikrama, you go around the tail, and then you come to the place where Raghava Pandit's cave is, and right there is a Rasa Stali, or a place that Krishna performed his Rasa dance. That's at least, now it's maybe becoming a little more commercial, but it was much more kind of shanti and not so many monkeys and things. Externally, again, we're talking about, But it's, one has to really bathe oneself in hearing about the pastimes when we go to the holy place. And it has super potency. You go to a holy place, you go to Uddhava Kund, and then you hear about Uddhava and his relationship with Lord Krishna. And then that place comes alive. You go to Radha Kund and you hear about Lord Chaitanya, how he was looking for it, and he saw this little puddle of, right? And then Radha Kund manifests. So it's really a lot about being in Vrindavan is about hearing and about associating with devotees, right? It's what's that verse? Don't go to holy places just to take bath, right? Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridatuke swadi kalatradishu boma ijadi yatirtha. What is it? Anyway, don't go to tirthas just to salile nakarhicha, just to take bath. But you should go there to associate with devotees. My son, if you know him, he's a bit of a rascal. I once quoted that verse in a class because it says "Boma EGT," that one thinks one place of birth is worshipable. Right? Like on Sankirtan, we would ask somebody, "Where are you from?" Say, "New York." "Oh, I'm also from New York." "Oh, and immediately there's a bond, right? So one's no better than a cow or an ass if one thinks one's place of birth is worshipable. And he raised his hand and said, "Well, I was born in Vrindavan. What should I do?" So, leave the class, Baba. That's what wise guy. So Vrindavan is the goal of our life, because that's why I try to go through Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan, Aishwarya, Krishna, Madhurya Krishna, because that's where God is really God. He's just enjoying, and who's he enjoying with? His great devotees. And so we try to understand the mood of his great devotees, and then that gives us some glimpse of Vrindavan. So that's the journey, and that these two verses are so important because ultimately Bhagavan realization is the full realization. Not that we poo-poo Brahman, Paraman, because they're also part of the same Advaya Gyan. It's not like they're over there and Krishna's over here. It's part of the same Advaya Gyan. But then that Advaya Gyan is more clearly mentioned in the next chapter. Krishna's to Bhagavan Swayam. And he's the original Supreme Personality of Godhead. And and where is he the most at home and the most enjoying with his greatest devotees? That's in Vrindavan. That's our goal. All right, so what do you want to talk about? We have time. That was Chaitanya Charitamrita. Oh, questions, comments? Only, well, one at a time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for the wonderful class. Thank you. But I have, the first question I have is when yesterday also Prabhupada, whenever he will explain Bhagavan, he'll say, one who possesses all opulence is Bhagavan.
Yes.
But then you were saying that, only in Goloka Vrindavan he is the real Bhagavan.
Well, not the real, it's not that like Lord Narayan's fake, but he's the fullest manifestation because of love.
Because what we understand, Narayan is more like an official position and Vrindavan is home and things like that. So when you mentioned that he is Bhagavan there in his full manifestation, it sounded that, in my mind it was contradicting because one is, if he is fully Bhagavan there, that means he has all the opulences there and everything, but we see the Vrindavan Vasis keep rejecting him as a Bhagavan and saying like, you are just like us. Like that, something like that.
Actually, they all know he's Bhagavan, but they could care less. They just couldn't care less because they just love him. That's the highest.
So that's the highest.
Mother Yashoda, what does it say? It says that she's ready to die 1,000 times just to relieve Krishna of having even one drop of perspiration. Right? She's ready to die 1,000 times. That's the purity of her love. So she's looking into Krishna's mouth and sees the whole universe and sees her with Krishna, and she just closes, right? And also there's that story. Is it Akbar? Akbar goes to see is it Sanatana Goswami or Rupa Goswami? Rupa Goswami, right? Anyway, make a long story short, he says, I'd like, what service can I do for Vrindavan? Can I, construct something? Can I do something? And Sanatana Goswami says, well, just go. There's just this one section of the Ghat that needs some repair. Akbar's like, what? I can build, I can, and you're just asking me to. And so he says, just go there. Anyway, he's go there and he's granted the vision of how opulent Vrindavan is and how these priceless jewels are. And this one section that was missing the jewels would be more than his entire wealth just to repair that. So he just realizes the ultimate opulence of Vrindavan. Thank you for that reminder of that discussion. Is that with the Tattvavadis that he's talking? Or was it?
Yeah. So the second one I was thinking, Prabhu, we have lived in Vrindavan for so long. And I was thinking,
externally, yes.
So my question is, how did your realization change? I'm not talking about from no skyscraper to all the skyscrapers and the pizza centers and things like that. The change that happened over the time externally, not that. But internally, did Vrindavan change for you?
I was pretty absorbed in service. I had the great fortune of, the great fortune I had was so much association. For example, Tamal Krishna Maharaj used to come every Kartik in the early 90s, and he would teach at the VIG, and I was helping to manage the VIG, so I had his association, and Satsvarup Maharaj, and Giriraj Maharaj, and Burijan Prabhu, and all the, it was so wonderful to get their their association. And then later, I was helping to manage the temple along with His Holiness Kadambakanna Maharaj, and developed a really deep friendship with him. So a lot of my good fortune was the association I had.
And the last thing I wanted to mention, that as we were discussing Krishna's to Bhagavan, so we have one in Chaitanya Charitamrita also. Akile Ishwar Krishna Arsha
Eko
Bhrita
Ishwar Krishna Arsha
Arsha
Bhrita.
Bhrita Jara Jaya Chanachay Shishakare
Yeah.
Nitya. So,
Everyone's a servant except
Yes.
Krishna, even Balaram.
yes, and everybody can dance on Krishna's.
Prabhuji?
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you for reminding me of many things. I was coming to Vrindavan a lot during those days, and
I
I
remember.
remember Gopinath being this big and this big and this big. It was wonderful. It was actually a wonderful, magical time for ISKCON, because many devotees, particularly Tamal Krishna Goswami and others, were really working at entering into being in the Dham
Mm-hmm.
without any pretensions. But two places, the word Yoga Maya is translated as making the impossible possible.
Mm.
One is Srila Prabhupada in the Madhya Lila. At one point he uses that term, and then Gopi Pranadhana also uses it in the description of one of Krishna's pastimes. And I thought, as soon as I read that in the Bhagavatam, it came up in our class, I thought, this is Gopi Pranadhana. Because I was lucky enough to spend time with him in Govardhan. So that said, the opulence of Krishna was only revealed just before he left Vrindavan, and that was during the pastime of lifting Govardhan Hill.
Mm.
Because the older men, cowherd men, Nanda Maharaj's associates, that blew their mind. There was no way to excuse Krishna's activities as being Narayan saving the boys and etc. So in that time, Krishna actually had to reveal himself as Narayana and showed them, just after that, the Vaikuntha planets, and that was their destination. And then he immediately covered them over again, so they go about being, the elder gopis and gopas around Vrindavan, and Krishna still being there for some time. And that's one of the ways that, as you're saying, he proves himself above the incarnations of Narayan and what have you. And it's just, they're very interesting points that come up in these pastimes.
Thank you.
Specifically with the Bomar Leela, where Radharani talks to the bumblebee, Vishwanath Chakravarti backs out of the whole thing. He says, this is an exhibition of this particular type of anger, and this one is this and this and that, but he doesn't try to explain it because it's beyond explanation when Radharani loses it with the bumblebee.
Yeah, that verse is from that chapter.
Yeah, since it was there. He brought it up one other time when Krishna, and this always really impresses me, when Krishna marries the 16,100 princesses, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also backs out of that one by saying there is no explanation to this. Because what happens is that every single person in Dwarka went to all of those 16,100 weddings simultaneously, and none of them know it, except that they know when they see that queen, oh, you had such a lovely wedding, your bindi was so nice, or your palu, all these different things, and these are proving that Krishna is beyond anyone's imagination and understanding, ultimately.
And we have a painting of lifting Govardhan Hill over there. Other comments, questions?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
In reflection of your class, I was thinking about Prabhupada's prana mantra about how the worlds are filled with impersonalism and voidism.
Mm.
So that translates into Mayavadi. That's what it means.
Yeah, and well, Nirvishesha
Okay.
Buddhist and Mayavad, yeah.
So in America and in most of the world, we have a family-centered ideal, and the highest personalism seems to be the love between parent and child,
Hmm.
husband and wife, the family scene. So where is the Mayavadi in all of this? Because Prabhupada said it's filled with impersonalism and voidism, but this seems very personal to be raising children, grandchildren.
Yeah, I think he's referring to their conception of God, not their family members. So
But we have many Christians, millions of Christians singing at the top of their lungs, glorifying Jesus, and they accept God
Yeah.
the Father. They don't know who He is.
It's I would refer devotees to Ravinda Suprabhu's talk, not talk, it was a whole 24 lectures on defeating Mayavadi philosophy that he gave. And he,
Thank you.
about no, I'm not done. There's like 3 or 4 classes on Christianity there. I remember one point he makes is that often the God that they pray to and the God that often Christians philosophize about are 2 different things. The praying is very, like you're saying, very kind of personal. Then if you get into the philosophy, he quotes some famous Christian theologians. It often gets more in the impersonal or Mayavad kind of conception. So, or I don't remember the details, and I grew up in a Jewish family, so I don't. I never got into it, but that's the basic idea that that Western world's nirvishesha shunyavadi, and even we see in a lot of places Buddhism is popular, and one reason it's really popular, first of all, it's really cool. Those bags that they carry are cool, and the dress is cool. It's a lot cooler than dhotis, in some ways. But also, you don't have to believe in God in Buddhism. So that makes it easy because then there's no one to please, and there's no one to displease. So that would. But you're right. It's not that. It's not that everyone in America is a Mayavadi, So, and Krishna, I'm fully convinced that Krishna reciprocates with people of other faiths. It's not that we're right and everyone else is like chopped cabbage, right? And we see some people are very, very sincere people in other religions, and I have a friend of mine who's a very sincere practitioner of Sufism, and we have great philosophical conversations. And when I said to her, so ultimately, is God a person or not? And she said, I'm not sure. Okay, fair enough. Just like being agnostic is honest. Being atheist is not honest if you think about it. Because atheism means, so if you go to an atheist, you're an atheist, okay. So you believe that there is no person who knows everything. They say yes. So that would include you. Yes. So you don't know for certain if there is a God or not. So you don't have to be a theist, but it would be more honest for you to say you're agnostic, that you're not sure. So agnosticism is honesty on one level, atheism, yeah.
I remember hearing Srila Prabhupada. He was on a morning walk, and the disciple was saying to him, Prabhupada, I just visited the Buddhist temple in the area. And he said, it was so clean. And so Prabhupada said, yes, but their hearts are very dirty.
Yeah. And there's different, Buddhisms. There's so many different, if you go to Southeast Asia, there's some Buddhism that seems very personal, but the impersonal one's more popular in here in the West. Yeah, but and also Prabhupada writes though that that by accepting Buddha, they're tricked into being God conscious since he's a incarnation. So, yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you. Krishna Kripa.
I think there's is that right over there? Prabhuji? Prabhuji? Mataji.
Rajvi Hari, thank you so much. I found myself wondering, okay, well, we're going to hear Chaitanya Charitamrita, right? Well, when are we going to hear Chaitanya Charitamrita? I kept thinking my mind was really set, wanting to hear that. And then I started realizing, my gosh, first you have to learn how to crawl before you. First you have to learn how to crawl before you can walk, and you walk before you run. So thank you. I just want to thank you for staying with your lesson plan.
Okay. And
Chai.
by the way, this is straight out of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's a whole description of Vedanti tat tattva vidas tattvam yojganam avyam. Yeah, and I would assume I'd have to remember in Madhya Lila 20, 21, 22, that's where you get a lot of the philosophy with Rupa and Sanatana Goswami.
Just to add to that, one should also, when you talk about Brahman and Brahman realization, a person can be a monist. They can understand as long as they're not envious.
Yeah.
Because there's a incident when Brahmananda Parati comes to Puri, and he was a monist. He completely believed in monism and only saw the effulgence as being everything until he met Lord Chaitanya, and he immediately accepted and understood this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and immediately, of course, became one of his more intimate associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as did the Kumaras.
Yes.
So being a monist, and as did Sukadev Goswami, they were all monists. They all only saw oneness.
Right.
But they also
weren't offenders.
heard or saw or experienced the personality of Godhead and fully accepted it because they were, in fact, monist.
And they have the greatest adhikari to become devotees, that Krishna says, bahunam jamanam ante jnanavamam prapajante. So you never want the class giver to interfere with breakfast.
They tell us that in Houston, too.
So, right? So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
The Prabhupada's kirtan
Shri-
comes on automatically at 20 minutes to 9.
There you go. Hare Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vikakanitam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare H Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram,